Hi guys, let's continue with ABHYAAS Test 2, UPSC Prelims 2020 from VISION IAS. 76th question is World Water Development Report is an annual publication released by the number A, World Bank, number B, UN Water, number C, World Meteorological Organization, number D, World Water Council. So the correct answer is B, that is UN Water. World Water Development Report. The WWDR is an annual and thematic report that focuses on different strategic water issues each year and aims to provide decision makers with the tools to implement sustainable use of our water resources. It also includes regional aspects, hotspots, examples, and stories, making the report relevant to a broad range of readers at different levels and in different geographical areas. The development of the WWDR, that is World Water Development Report, coordinated by the World Water Assessment Programme (WWAP), is a joint effort of the UN agencies and entities which make up UN Water, working in partnership with governments, international organizations, non-governmental organizations, and other stakeholders. Hence, option B is the correct answer. The World Water Development Report 2020 is titled Water and Climate Change. The 2020 edition of the World Water Development Report WWDR 2020, entitled Water and Climate Change, aims at helping the water community to tackle the challenges of climate change and informing the climate change community about the opportunities that improved water management offers in terms of adaptation and mitigation. Now let's come to question number 77. Consider the following passage. He was one of the earliest to have protested against a regulation restricting the freedom of the press. His newspaper, Mirad al-Akbar, had to stop publication against the protest of a licensing regulation act. He also brought out a religious periodical, the Brahminical Magazine, to counteract the missionaries' propaganda. The above passage best describes who among the following. So the correct answer, so option number A would be Surendranath Banerjee. Number B, Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Number C, Gopal Krishna Gokhale. Number D, Sisir Kumar Ghosh. So the correct answer is B, that is Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Raja Ram Mohan Roy was described by Jawaharlal Nehru as a founder of the Indian press. Roy's contribution to Indian language journalism is unparalleled. Ram Mohan Roy stood for a free press. As early as 1824, Raja Ram Mohan Roy had protested against a regulation restricting the freedom of the press. Roy also started a newspaper in Persian, which is called Mirad al-Akbar, which means mirror of news, in 1822, but shut it down in 1823 due to protest against the Licensing Regulations Act of 1823. In a memorandum to the Supreme Court, he had said that every good ruler will be anxious to afford every individual the readiest means of bringing to his notice whatever may require his interference. To secure this important object, the unrestricted liberty of publication is the only effectual means that can be employed. He founded the Sambad Komudi, that is Moon of Intelligence, in 1821 in Calcutta. He also brought out a religious periodical, the Brahminical Magazine, to counteract the missionaries' propaganda. Three journals, all connected with Raja Ram Mohan Roy: the Reformer, the Inquirer, and the Gyan Oneshun. So they are the Reformer, the Inquirer, and Gyan Oneshun, representing the school of progressive Hindu journalism, held the field in Bengal till as late as 1891. Hence, option B is the correct answer. Now let's come to question number 78. Before independence, British India comprised of several provinces, either governed by a lieutenant governor or a chief commissioner, and princely states. Which of the following reasons was never a British Indian province? Number A, Burma. Number B, Bhutan. Number C, Balochistan. Number D, Assam. So the correct answer is B, that is Bhutan. Burma, different portions of Burmese territories were annexed at different times. Tenasserim and Arakan were taken in 1826 by the British after their victory in the First Anglo-Burmese War. The Delta region, including Rangoon, which is in Lower Burma, was annexed in 1852 after the Second Anglo-Burmese War. The annexed territories were designated the minor province, a chief commissionership, British Burma of British India in 1862. Upper Burma fell to the British and the Mandalay-based Peacock Throne was toppled after the Third Anglo-Burmese War in 1885. The last monarch, the cruel King Thibaw, and his queen were exiled to India, carried out of Mandalay in an ox cart. The following year, in 1886, the province of Burma in British India was created, becoming a major province, a lieutenant governorship in 1897. After 40 years, the British separated Burma province from British India in 1937 and granted the colony a new constitution calling for a fully elected assembly. Hence, option A is not correct. Now let's come to Bhutan. The country was never colonized by Britain, but its forces were defeated in North Bengal and Bhutan was forced to sign a treaty which gave Britain control of its foreign relations. India inherited that power when it became independent in 1947 and remains a powerful influence over the country. Hence, option B is the correct answer. Now let's come to Balochistan. The office of the Chief Commissioner in British Balochistan was created in the wake of the Treaty of Gandamak in 1879, and this office was held by the AGG. The newly annexed territories were designated as Chief Commissioner's Province of Balochistan. These territories were mostly inhabited by Pashtun people from Kakar, Tarin, Said, Luni, Mandokhel, and Sherani tribes. The jurisdiction of the Chief Commissioner extended over all those territories that were appended to the Balochistan Agency after the Second Afghan War, 1878, such as Zob and be seen, as well as the territories leased from the Khan of Kalat from time to time. Hence, option C is not correct. Now let's come to Assam. Assam province was a province of British India created in 1912 by the partition of the Eastern Bengal and Assam province. Its capital was in Shillong. The Assam territory was first separated from Bengal in 1874 as the Northeast Frontier Non-Regulation Province. Hence, option D is not correct. So the correct answer is B, that is Bhutan. Now let's come to question number 79. Which of the following forms the major components of volcanic smoke or VOG? Number 1, sulfur dioxide, SO2. Number 2, aerosols. Number 3, nitrogen dioxide, NO2. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is A, that is 1 and 2 only. So the correct answer is A. So the correct answer is A, that is 1 and 2, that is sulfur dioxide and aerosols. VOG, that is volcanic smoke, is a hazy mixture of of SO2 gas, that is sulfur dioxide, of SO2 gas and aerosols, that is tiny particles or droplets which are primarily sulfuric acid and other sulfate, that is SO4 compounds. Hence options 1 and 2 are correct. Aerosols are created when SO2 and other volcanic gases combine in the atmosphere and interact chemically with oxygen, moisture, dust, and sunlight over minutes to days. As SO2 is released from the summit and east rift eruptive vents, it creates in the atmosphere with as SO2 is released from the summit and east rift eruptive vents. It reacts in the atmosphere with oxygen, sunlight, moisture, and other gases and particles, and within hours or days converts to fine particles which scatter sunlight, causing the visible haze. SO2 is a colorless, irritating gas that has an acrid odor like fireworks or a burning match. It is also emitted from sources such as fossil fuel power plants and motor vehicles. Fine particles consist of particulate matter less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter and are referred to as PM2.5. These particles are smaller than the width of a human hair. PM2.5 in VOG, that is volcanic smoke, is mainly composed of acid and neutral sulfate particles. Other sources of PM2.5 include vehicle exhaust and smoke from fires. So volcanic smoke or VOG contains mostly SO2 and acid particles, in contrast to urban, industrial, and other pollution sources, which also contain additional toxic contaminants such as ozone, NO2, and hydrocarbons. Hence, option 3 is not correct. Now let's come to question number 80. Enhanced Access and Service Excellence EASE agenda often mentioned in news is related to number A. Institutionalizing clean and tech-enabled banking for public sector banks. Number B. Providing health infrastructure under Ayushman Bharat Yojana. Number C. Providing services to Divyangs under Accessible India campaign. Number D. Improving credit access to MSMEs. So the correct answer is A, that is institutionalizing clean and tech-enabled banking for public sector banks. PSB reforms EASE, that is Enhanced Access and Service Excellence Agenda, is a common reform agenda for PSBs aimed at institutionalizing clean and smart banking. It was launched in January 2018, and the subsequent edition of the program, that is EASE 2.0, built on the foundation laid in EASE 1.0 and further the progress on reforms. Reform action points in EASE 2.0 aimed at making the reforms journey irreversible, strengthening processes and systems, and driving outcomes. Public sector banks have shown significant improvement in the action plans of the EASE reforms agenda since its introduction. Recently, the Ministry of Finance unveiled EASE 3.0, the Public Sector Bank PSB Reforms Agenda 2020-21 for smart, tech-enabled banking. Hence, option A is the correct answer. EASE 3.0 seeks to enhance ease of banking in all customer experiences using technology, fintech, alternate data and analytics. Dial a loan for doorstep loan facilitation, credit at the red click for end-to-end digitalized lending, on-the-spot ease banking outlets at well-frequented places like malls and stations, palm banking, digitalized branch experience, in analytics-based instant credit offers, cash flow-based credit, and tech-enabled agriculture lending are part of a wide array of tech-enabled ease enhancements that PSBs would effect during financial year 2020-21. So the correct answer is A. Now let's come to question number 81. Consider the following statements with respect to Indian Ocean dialogue. So, Indian Ocean dialogue. Statement 1, it is an initiative of the Indian Ocean Commission. Number 2, the first Indian Ocean dialogue was hosted in India. Number 3, all the littoral countries of the Indian Ocean are participants in the dialogue. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is B. That is 2 only. So only statement 2 is correct. Recently, the Ministry of External Affairs of India hosted the 6th Indian Ocean Dialogue and Delhi Dialogue 11 in 2019. For the first time, two track 1.5 dialogues. The term track 1.5 diplomacy is used by some analysts to define a situation where official and non-official actors cooperate in conflict resolution, which are key elements of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, that is IORA, and the India-ASEAN calendars respectively, were held consecutively and on similar Indo-Pacific themes. Now let's come to the Indian Ocean Dialogue, that is IOD. It is a flagship initiative of the Indian Ocean Rim Association, that is IORA, with its origins in the 13th Council of Ministers meeting held in November 2013 in Perth, which is in Australia. The first IOD was held in Kerala, which is in India, in 2014. Hence, statement 1 is not correct and statement 2 is correct. IORA has 21 member states, including Australia, Bangladesh, Comoros, India, Indonesia, Iran, Kenya, Madagascar, Djibouti, Malaysia, Mauritius, Mozambique, Oman, Seychelles, Singapore, Somalia, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Tanzania, Thailand, UAE, and Yemen. Pakistan and Myanmar are not members of IORA, hence statement 3 is not correct. Today, the IOD is established in its role as a standalone Track 1.5 discussion, encouraging an open and free-flowing dialogue by key representatives of the IORA member states such as scholars, experts, analysts, and policymakers from governments, think tanks, and civil societies on a number of crucial strategic issues of the Indian Ocean region. Additional related information about Indian Ocean Commission, that is IOC. It is an intergovernmental organization created in 1982. It was institutionalized in 1984 by the Victoria Agreement in Seychelles. It is comprised of 5 African Indian Ocean nations, that is Comoros, Madagascar, Mauritius, Reunion, which is an overseas region of France, and Seychelles. So these are the 5 African Indian Ocean nations. The principal mission is to strengthen the ties of friendship between the countries and to be a platform of solidarity for the entire population of the African Indian Ocean region. The Commission has a secretariat which is located in Mauritius and headed by a Secretary General. The Commission has now 5 observers, that is India, China, EU, Malta, and International Organization of La Francophonie, that is OIF. About Indian Ocean Rim Association, that is IORA. It is an intergovernmental organization which was established on 7th March 1997. IORA's it is an apex body is the council of its apex body. So IORA's apex body is the Council of Foreign Ministers, COM, which meets annually. The United Arab Emirates, that is UAE, assumes the role of chair since November 2019 to November 2021, followed by the People's Republic of Bangladesh. All sovereign states of the Indian Ocean Rim are eligible for membership of the association. To become members, states must adhere to the principles and objectives enshrined in the Charter of the Association. It has 22 member states and 9 dialogue partners, with an ever-growing momentum for mutually beneficial regional operation through a consensus-based, evolutionary, and non-intrusive approach. Its members include Australia, Bangladesh, Union of Comoros, India, Indonesia, Iran, Kenya, Madagascar, Malaysia, Maldives, Mauritius, Mozambique, Oman, Seychelles, Singapore, Somalia, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Tanzania, Thailand, United Arab Emirates, and Yemen. Dialogue partners. Dialogue partners refer to individual sovereign states and not members of IORA, but with a special interest and/or capacity to contribute to IORA, particularly in the areas of common interest. Dialogue partners provide valuable assistance in the field of technology transfer, environmental issues, the promotion of trade and investment, technical cooperation, and assistance to the Special Fund. They are the Italian Republic, Japan, Germany, the People's Republic of China, the United Kingdom, the United States of America, France, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Republic of Turkey, and the Republic of Korea. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 82. In the context of the economy, which of the following statements best describes Pareto optimality? Number A, it refers to an economic state where resources cannot be reallocated to make one individual better off without making at least one individual worse off. Option B, it refers to the degree of government intervention in a market-driven economy necessary to maintain a balance between free trade and citizen welfare. Number C, it refers to the minimum value of imports that a country must carry out to support its exports. Number D, it refers to the ideal fiscal deficit value that governments must maintain below which growth rate and job creation may be hindered. So the correct answer is A. The correct answer is A. That is, it refers to an economic state where resources cannot be reallocated to make one individual better off without making at least one individual worse off. Pareto efficiency or Pareto optimality is an economic state where resources cannot be reallocated to make one individual better off without making at least one individual worse off. Hence, option A is the correct answer. Pareto efficiency implies that resources are allocated in the most economically efficient manner, but does not imply equality or fairness. Pure Pareto efficiency exists only in theory, though the economy can move toward Pareto efficiency. Such a move is called a Pareto improvement. A Pareto improvement occurs when a change in allocation harms no one and helps at least one person given an initial allocation of goods for a set of persons. The theory suggests that Pareto improvements will keep enhancing value to an economy until it achieves Pareto equilibrium where no more Pareto improvements can be made. Conversely, when an economy is at Pareto efficiency, any change to the allocation of resources will make at least one individual worse off. Therefore, no matter how much efficiency we try to bring out in the allocation of resources to different sections of society, there will always be some left out. So the correct answer is A. Now let's come to question number 83. Consider the following statements regarding the Western cyclonic disturbances. Number 1. The Western cyclonic disturbances originate over the Mediterranean Sea and are brought into India by the westerly jet stream. Number 2. The arrival of western cyclones disturbances is generally indicated by a fall in the prevailing night temperature. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is A. The correct answer is A, that is one only. Only statement 1 is correct. The western cyclonic disturbances originate over the Mediterranean Sea and are brought into India by the westerly jet stream. A western disturbance, WD, also begins as a low-pressure system, one that originates in the mid-latitude region near the Atlantic Ocean and Europe. The low-pressure system typically forms over the Mediterranean Sea. It then hitches a ride eastwards on the high-altitude westerly jet streams, picking up moisture from various sources including the Mediterranean Sea, Black Sea, Caspian Sea, and sometimes even the Arabian Sea. The western cyclonic disturbances, which enter the Indian subcontinent from the west and the northwest during the winter months, originate over the Mediterranean Sea and are brought into India by the westerly jet stream. Hence, statement 1 is correct. After covering thousands of miles, these moisture-laden WDs eventually come up against the mighty Himalayas and are blocked. As a consequence, the moisture gets trapped and precipitation is shed in the form of snow and rain over northwest India and sometimes other parts of North India. Western disturbances are also associated with cloudy skies and an increase in nighttime temperatures in parts of North India. They can also cause strong winds that help disperse suspended pollutants in the smog-filled cities of the region. An increase in the prevailing night temperature generally indicates an advance in the arrival of these cyclones disturbances. Hence, statement 2 is not correct. Now let's come to question number 84. Recently, COP13 of the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species, that is CMS, of wild animals was held in India. In this context, which of the following species were added to the appendices of the CMS? Number 1, Great Indian Bustard. Number 2, Bengal Falcon. Number 3, Dugong. Number 4, Jaguar. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer is C, that is 1, 2 and 4 only. 1, 2 and 4 only. That is the Great Indian Bustard, Bengal Florican, and Jaguar. The 13th meeting of the Conference of the Parties to the Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species of Wild Animals, that is CMS COP13, concluded recently in Gandhinagar, which is in India. CMS COP13 was the first of a series of international nature-related meetings in 2020, which will culminate in the UN Biodiversity Conference at the end of this year, when the new global biodiversity strategy for the next decade will be adopted. The post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. CMS COP13 was the largest ever in the history of the convention. CMS has 2 appendices. These appendices list migratory species to which the convention applies. Appendix 1 comprises migratory species that have been assessed as being in danger of extinction throughout all or a significant portion of their range. Appendix 2 covers migratory species that have unfavorable conservation status and that require international agreements for their conservation and management, as well as those that have a conservation status which would significantly benefit from the international cooperation that could be achieved by an international agreement. 10 new species were added to CMS appendices at COP13. 7 species were added to Appendix 1, which provides the strictest protection. The Asiatic lion, it's number 1. Number 2 is jaguar. Number 3 is Great Indian Bustard. Number 4 is Bengal Florican. Number 5 would be Little Bustard. Number 6 would be Antipodian albatross, and number 7 would be the oceanic white-tailed shark. The Ural, smooth hammerhead shark, and the tope shark were listed for protection under Appendix 2, which covers migratory species that have unfavorable conservation status and would benefit from enhanced international cooperation and conservation actions. India has also signed non-legally binding MOU earlier with CMS on the conservation and management of Siberian cranes 1998, marine turtles 2007, dugongs 2008, and raptors 2016. CMS COP13 also adopted the Gandhinagar Declaration, which calls for migratory species and the concept of ecological connectivity to be integrated and prioritized in the new framework, which is expected to be adopted at the UN Biodiversity Conference in October. Now let's come to next question, that is question number 85. In the context of the modern history of India, Copland Plan is associated with number A, terms of agreement between British India and Nepal. Number B, division of financial resources between India and Pakistan. Number C, separation of hilly territories of the northeastern region after independence. Number D, demarcation of boundary between British India and Afghanistan. So the correct answer is C. The correct answer is C, that is separation of hilly territories of the northeastern region after independence. Copland Plan was hatched by the Britishers before they left India in 1947. That was to separate the hilly territories of northeastern region from India. Hence option C is the correct answer. The man behind this proposal was R. Copland, who came to India as secretary to Strafford Cripps. As the British colonialists were ready to quit the northeastern region, there emerged two schools of thought among the British administrators over the fate of the hill tribals. Some political administrators proposed to the British government to create a separate hill territory under the proposed Copland Plan. Accordingly, the British government made a plan to form such crown colony, as they foresaw the possibility of such a colony in the hill region between India and Burma. The intelligentsia among the hills people are oppressed of the intelligentsia among the hills people were apprised of the possibilities of a free nation and made them adequately familiarize of their rights to self-determination instead of integrating with India. This, however, did not succeed, as the hill tribals, especially the stronger people like Nagas, demanded restoration of complete independence of Nagaland to their earlier position before the British annexed the Naga areas. On the other hand, there was a group of political officers supported by a few hill tribals and especially from the plains to negotiate with the government of India for merging with it. The main intention of the British was economic benefit and security for its expansion to gain. Besides, the British perceived that maintaining this landlocked region with threats looming from India, Burma, and China would be a difficult task. Moreover, there was a disagreement among the hill tribes which made things more difficult for them. All these culminated to the division. So all these culminated to the division of the northeastern region into different fragments. Thus, some part went to Burma, other part into East Pakistan, that is Bangladesh, and the greater portion merged with the independent India. Now let's come to question number 86. Consider the following statements. Statement 1. For a resident Indian citizen, the income tax law applies to that person's worldwide income. Number 2. For a non-resident Indian, the income tax law applies only to the income earned from within India. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? The correct answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. So both the statements are correct. Indian income tax is levied on an individual based on two parameters, namely residency and source of income, the country where the income is being generated. Unlike in the United States, where citizenship also implies residency, in India, residency requires a person to actually live in the country for a specified number of days in a year. Non-resident Indian means an individual being a citizen of India or a person of Indian origin who is not a resident. The basic and not the only condition to determine the residency status of an individual is that cumulative stay in India during the relevant financial year for 182 days or more. The difference between the treatment of a resident and non-resident Indian citizen is that for a resident Indian citizen, the income tax law applies to that person's worldwide income, that is, any income earned in any jurisdiction is used to calculate the taxable income, and such a resident Indian is required to pay tax on all of it. But for a non-resident Indian, the income tax law applies only to the income earned from within India. Hence, both statements 1 and 2 are correct. For example, if Indian national life in New Delhi. So let's consider an example. If an Indian national lives in New Delhi but earns rental income from a house she owns in San Francisco, then along with all other income that she earns within India, this rental income too will attract tax. However, if an Indian citizen stays and works in San Francisco, making her a non-resident Indian, and additionally earns a rental income from a home in Delhi, then the Indian income tax would apply only to the rental income from the Delhi home. Recent amendments to the IT Act proposed in Finance Bill 2020. Number 1. The government in Budget 2020-21 has proposed to reduce the number of days for individuals to be considered as Indian residents for tax purposes to 120 or more, as the provision was being misused by individuals who are actually carrying out substantial economic activities from India, manage their period of stay in India so as to remain a non-resident in perpetuity and not be required to declare their global income in India. Number 2, another amendment said, an Indian citizen who is not liable to tax in any other country or territory shall be deemed to be resident in India. This amendment created confusion as it was seen as trying to tax non-residents as residents, that is, trying to tax the global income of non-residents. However, the government explained that non-resident Indians working in income tax-free jurisdictions such as the UAE will have to pay tax only on their income generated in India and not on their earnings outside the country. Now let's come to next question, that is question number 87. Consider the following. Statement 1. Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. Number 2, Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Number 3, Conference on Disarmament. Number 4, Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. India is a party to which of the treaties or conferences given above? The correct answer is A. That is 3 only. So India is a member of Conference on Disarmament only. Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. It is a multilateral treaty that bans all nuclear explosions for both civilian and military purposes in all environments. Since the time it was open for signature, India did not support the treaty based on its discriminatory nature. Next, we have the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, or the Nuclear Weapon Ban Treaty. It is the first legally binding international agreement to comprehensively prohibit nuclear weapons, with the goal of leading towards their total elimination. It was passed on 7 July 2017. It is not in force yet. India and other nuclear armed nations such as the United States, Russia, Britain, China, France, Pakistan, North Korea, and Israel had not participated in the negotiations. Next, we have the Conference on Disarmament. It was formed in 1979 as the single multilateral disarmament negotiation forum of the international community. India is one of its 65 members. Last treaty, we have Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons, that is NPT, 1968. Its objective is to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons and weapons technology, to promote cooperation in the peaceful uses of nuclear energy, and to further the goal of achieving nuclear disarmament and general and complete disarmament. India, Israel, North Korea, Pakistan, South Sudan are not parties to this treaty. Now let's come to question number 88. In the context of modern Indian history, the Patkat settlement in the early 19th century was related to: number A, tax assessment in the areas where Ryotwari system was used for revenue collection; number B, agreement between the Indian princes and the British monarch regarding the governance in the princely states; number C, refraining of the British Indian government from bringing social reforms in the Indian society; number D, a contract between the tribes in the Chota Nagpur and the East India Company that guaranteed land rights to the former. So the correct answer is A. The correct answer is A, that is tax assessment in the areas where Ryotwari system was used for revenue collection. Ryotwari system was experimented by Alexander Reed in Baramahal in 1792, and Thomas Murno. Okay. So Ryotwari system was experimented by Alexander Reed in Baramahal in 1792 and Thomas Munro in 1801 in ceded districts, that is the present day Andhra Pradesh. Instead of jamindars, they began to collect revenue directly from each cultivator or ryot. Eventually, a field assessment system was also framed, as rent payable on each field was to be permanently assessed through a general survey of all lands. Various factors like soil quality, area of cultivation, and average productivity had to be assessed to decide the revenue. But in practice, the estimates were often based on pure guesses, and revenue demanded was so high. In many areas, tax of a riot was assessed based on previous village accounts known as putcut settlement. The revenue to be paid by the farmer was fixed on his entire farm, not on each field, which might have varying irrigation facilities and productivity. Hence, option A is the correct answer. Then, annual agreements were to be made between government and cultivators who had the choice of accepting or rejecting. On acceptance, he will be given the pata, that is a title to private property. Now let's come to next question, that is question number 89. Which of the following correctly describes Paludi culture? So, which of the following correctly describes Paludi culture? Number A, it is the practice of agroforestry and cultivation on peat lands. Number B, it is the practice of artificial ripening of fruits and vegetables in Mediterranean region. Number C, it is a system of taking sustainable measures for developing biofuels from artificially cultivated algae. Number D, it is the in vitro culture of seeds to generate seedlings and plants. So the correct answer is A. That is, it is the practice of agroforestry and cultivation on peat lands. According to a Food and Agriculture Organization (FAO) of the United Nations report released recently in March 2020, peatlands play a crucial role in regulating global climate by acting as carbon sinks. They are facing degradation and need to be urgently monitored. The report comprised information as well as recommendations to countries on restoring and managing these valuable ecosystems. Peatlands cover only 3% of Earth's surface. However, their degradation due to drainage, fire, agricultural use, and forestry can trigger release of the stored carbon in a few decades. The publication, authored by 35 experts, highlights important case studies from Indonesia, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and Peru in their attempts to map and monitor peatlands. Peatlands contain 30% of the world's soil carbon. When drained, these emit greenhouse gases contributing up to 1 gigaton of emissions per year through oxidation, according to the report. Paludiculture is the practice of agroforestry and cultivation or farming on peatlands. It combines the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions from drained peatlands through re-wetting with continued land use and biomass production under wet conditions. Hence, option A is the correct answer. A peatland is a wetland type dominated by living peat-forming plants. Peat is an accumulation of partially decayed vegetation or organic matter. Peatlands occur in different climate zones. While in tropic climate, they can occur in mangroves. In Arctic regions, peatlands are dominated in mosses. Some mangrove species are known to develop peatland soils under them. Peatlands cover only 3% of Earth's surface. Peatlands contain 30% of the world's soil carbon. When drained, these emit greenhouse gases, which contribute to 1 gigaton of emissions per year through oxidation. However, their degradation due to drainage, fire, agricultural use, and forestry can trigger release of the stored carbon in a few decades. Okay, now let's come to the next question. Question number 90. With reference to the Global Tiger Recovery Program, consider the following statements. Statement 1. It seeks to double the number of wild tigers across their range by 2022. Number 2, it is funded through a flexible financing mechanism enabling all potential public and private funders. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is C, that is both 1 and 2. So both 1 and 2 are correct. The Global Tiger Initiative, that is GTI, was launched in 2008 as a global alliance of governments, international organizations, civil society, the conservation and scientific communities, and the private sector, with the aim of working together to save wild tigers from extinction. In 2013, the scope was broadened to include snow leopards. The Global Tiger Recovery Program marks the first formalized international initiative to save the species from extinction. The GTI's founding partners included the World Bank, the Global Environment Facility, that is GEF, the Smithsonian Institution, Save the Tiger Fund, and International Tiger Coalition, representing more than 40 non-government organizations. The initiative is led by the 13 Tiger Range countries, that is TRCs. The overarching goal adopted by the Global Tiger Recovery Program, that is GTRP, is to reverse the rapid decline of wild tigers and to strive to double the number of wild tigers across their range by 2022. Hence, statement 1 is correct. The financial support for GTRP implementation is to be through a flexible financing mechanism that enables all potential funders, official bilateral programs, multilateral development banks, and the GEF, as well as private, corporate, and international NGOs to support the GTRF portfolio. Hence, statement 2 is correct. Now let's come to question number 91. Arrange the following crops in decreasing order of the area under their production in India. Number 1, we have rice. Number 2, wheat. Number 3, maize. Number 4, sugarcane. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So the correct answer is A. So the correct answer is A. That is, the first one is rice, then wheat, then maize, then sugarcane. The correct order is rice, wheat, maize, and sugarcane. Hence, option A is the correct answer. So now let's come to question number 92. Consider the following statements about trade unions in India. Number 1. The right to form trade unions is a fundamental right in India. Number 2, trade unions can be registered both by the center and state governments. Number 3, they got statutory recognition for the first time after independence. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is A. That is 1 and 2 only. So the statements 1 and 2 are correct. Trade unions. A trade union is a voluntary organization of workers pertaining to a particular trade, industry, or company and formed to promote and protect their interest and welfare by collective action. They are the most suitable organizations for balancing and improving the relations between the employer and the employees. They are formed not only to cater to the workers' demand but also for inculcating in them the sense of discipline and responsibility. The earliest known trade unions in India were the Bombay Mill Hands Association, formed in 1890. The Amalgamated Society of Railway Servants of India and Burma, formed in 1897. Printers Union, formed in Calcutta in 1905. The Bombay Postal Union, which was formed in 1907. The Kamgar Hit Hitvardhak Sabha Bombay, formed in 1910. So the last one is Kamgar Hitvardhak Sabha Bombay, formed in 1910. The All India Trade Union Congress was formed in 1920 on a national basis. The Central Labour Board, Bombay, and the Bengal Trades Union Federation was formed in 1922. In March 1921, Sri N. M. Joshi, then General Secretary of the All India Trade Union Congress, successfully moved a resolution in the Central Legislative Assembly recommending that the government should introduce legislation for the registration and protection of trade unions. Opposition from employers to the adoption of such a measure was however so great that it was not until 1926 that the Indian Trade Unions Act was passed. It came into force on 1st June 1927 as the Indian Trade Unions Act 1926. By Section 3 of the Indian Trade Unions Amendment Act 1964, the word Indian has been omitted and now it is known as the Trade Unions Act 1926. This act summarizes all modalities pertaining to the registration of trade unions to the decision of trade-related disputes. This act sets guidelines for both the workers and the industrialist. The act deals with the registration of trade unions, their rights, their liabilities and responsibilities, as well as it ensures that their funds are utilized properly. Hence, Statement 3 is not correct. It gives a legal and corporate status to the registered trade unions. It also seeks to protect them from civil or criminal prosecution so that they could carry on their legitimate activities for the benefit of the working class. The act is applicable not only to the workers not only to the union of workers but also to the association of employers. It extends to the whole of India. In this act, the appropriate government means in relation to trade unions whose objects are not confined to one state, the central government, and in relation to other trade unions, the state government. The appropriate government shall appoint a person to be the registrar of trade unions for each state. Hence, Statement 2 is correct. The Labour Bureau, Ministry of Labour and Employment, Chandigarh, is a nodal agency to compile the information relating to the trade unions. The state governments and union territories are furnishing annual returns under the Indian Trade Union Act 1926 to the Labour Bureau. Article 19, Clause 1, Clause C provides every citizen the right to form associations and unions, and it includes trade unions also. It also includes a right not to join or form any association or union. Hence, statement 1 is correct. So, the correct answer is 1 and 2 only. Question number 93. Arrange the following greenhouse gases in the decreasing order of their emissions in the environment. Number 1, carbon dioxide. Number 2, nitrous oxide. Number 3, methane. Select the correct answer using the code given below. So this is in the decreasing order, that is from the highest to the lowest. So the correct answer is B, that is the first one is carbon dioxide, then we have methane, then the last one is nitrous oxide. So the carbon dioxide overview of greenhouse gas emissions in 2018. So for carbon dioxide it would be 81%, for methane it is 10%, and for nitrous oxide it is 7%. And so the correct answer is B, that is 1. First one is carbon dioxide, then we have methane, then the last one is nitrous oxide. Now let's come to question number 94. Consider the following statements. Statement number 1. The Government of India Allocation of Business Rules 1961 are made by the Ministry of Parliament Affairs. Number 2. The ministries or departments of the Government of India are created by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? The correct answer is B, that is 2 only. So, statement 2 is correct. The Government of India Allocation of Business Rules 1961 are made by the President of India under Clause 3 of Article 77 of the Constitution for the allocation of business of the Government of India. The ministries or departments of the government are created by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister under these rules. Hence, statement 1 is not correct and statement 2 is correct. The business of the government are transacted in the ministries or departments, secretariats and offices referred to as department as per the distribution of subjects specified in these rules. Each of the ministries is assigned to a minister by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. Each department is generally under the charge of a secretary to assist the minister on policy matters and general administration. Now let's come to question number 95. Environment Relief Fund (ERF) has been established under the provisions of which of the following? Number A, Environment Protection Act 1986. Number B, Public Liability Insurance PLI Act 1991. Number C, Biological Diversity Act 2002. Number D, National Green Tribunal Act 2010. So the correct answer is B, that is Public Liability Insurance PLI Act 1991. The Government of India has enacted the Public Liability Insurance Act 1991, which was amended in 1992. The Act provides for immediate relief to persons affected by accidents occurring while handling the notified hazardous substances. Relief is provided in the event of death or injury to persons or damage to private property. For this purpose, the owner of the industrial unit handling such hazardous substances is required to obtain one or more insurance policies. The Act also provides for establishing the Environment Relief Fund, that is ERF, in case the amount of relief awarded by the collector exceeds the amount payable under the insurance policy purchased by the owner or exceeds the liability of the insurance company. ERF is to be utilized for paying claims. PLI Act makes it obligatory upon the user industries handling 179 types of chemicals and compounds and other classes of flammable substances to subscribe a special insurance policy to cover the liabilities likely to rise on account of any chemical, industrial disaster, or accident and payable to those affected people who are not the workers on no fault basis or absolute liability. So the correct answer is B. Now let's come to the next question, that is question number 96. Which of the following is or are the likely effects of the inversion of temperature? Number 1, the occurrence of fog and frost. Number 2, atmospheric instability. Number 3, diffusion of dust and smoke is limited. Select the correct answer using the code given below. The correct answer is A. So the correct answer is A, that is 1 and 3 only. So 1 and 3 are correct. Temperature inversion. A temperature inversion is a thin layer of the atmosphere where the normal decrease in temperature with height switches to the temperature decreasing with height. And inversion acts like a lid, keeping normal convective overturning of the atmosphere from penetrating through the inversion. Significance of temperature inversion. Though inversion of temperature denotes local and temporary conditions of the atmosphere, but there are several climatic effects of inversion which are of great significance to man and his economic activities. Fog is formed due to the situation of warm air above and cold air below because the warm air is cooled from below and resultant condensation causes the formation of tiny droplets around suspended dust particles and smokes during winter nights. The smokes coming out of houses and chimneys intensify fogs and become responsible for the occurrence of urban smokes. Diffusion of dust, smoke, and other air pollutants is likewise limited to calm winds. Hence, options 1 and 3 are correct. When smoke is mixed with air pollutants such as sulfur dioxide, it becomes poisonous and deadly health hazard to human beings. The incidence of deadly urban smokes of December 1930 in Meuse Valley of Belgium, 600 people fell ill and 63 people died. Of October 26, 1948 at Donora in Pennsylvania in USA, and of 1952 in London, causing 4,000 human deaths, tell the ordeal of urban smokes. Fogs are also formed at the convergence of warm and cold ocean currents. Road and rail transport is also badly affected by the occurrence of dense fogs. Though generally fogs are unfavorable for many agricultural crops such as grams, peas, mustard plants, wheats, etc., but sometimes they are also favorable for some crops such as coffee plants in Yemen hills of Arabia, where fogs protect coffee plants from direct strong sun's rays. Inversion of temperature causes frost. When the condensation of warm air due to its cooling by cold air below occurs at temperature below freezing point, frost is definitely and economically unfavorable weather phenomenon mainly for crops because fruit orchards and several agricultural crops such as potatoes, tomatoes, peas, etc., are totally damaged overnight. There are frequent cases of destruction of fruit orchards in the lower parts of valleys due to severe frost caused by inversion of temperature in California in USA. Fruit orchards were severely damaged in California in the year 1913, 1917, and 1923 due to severe frost. The valley floors in the hills of Brazil are avoided for coffee cultivation because of frequent frost. Alternatively, coffee is planted on the upper slopes of the valley. The upper parts of the valley are inhabited in Switzerland while lower parts are avoided. In fact, the upper slopes of valleys are characterized by fruit orchards, hotels and motels for tourists, various resort centers, etc., while the lower slopes are deserted. Inversion of temperature causes atmospheric stability, which stops upward, that is ascent, and downward, that is descent, movements of air. The atmospheric stability encourages rainfall and favors dry condition. Hence, option 2 is not correct. The inversion of temperature caused by the subsidence of air resulting into anticyclonic conditions increases aridity. This is why the western parts of the continent situated between 20° to 30° latitudes and characterized by anticyclonic conditions represent most widespread tropical deserts of the world. Now let's come to question number 97. With reference to the presently announced special liquidity facility for mutual funds SLFMF by the RBI, consider the following statements. Statement 1. It aims to infuse liquidity in the debt mutual fund market through repo operations conducted by the RBI. Number 2. Funds availed under the facility shall be used by banks only to extend loans to retail consumers investing in mutual funds. Which of the statements given above is or are correct? So the correct answer is A. That is one only. So statement 1 is correct. Heightened volatility in capital markets in reaction to COVID-19 has imposed liquidity strains on mutual funds, that is MFs, which have intensified in the wake of redemption pressures related to closure of some debt MFs and potential contagious effects therefrom. The stress is, however, confined to the high-risk debt MF segment at this stage. The larger industry remains liquid. With a view to easing liquidity pressures on MFs, it has been decided by the Reserve Bank of India to open a special liquidity facility for mutual funds of 50,000 crore. Under the SLFMF, the RBI shall conduct repo operations of 90 days tenor at the fixed repo rate. Hence statement 1 is correct. Funds availed under the SLF-MF shall be used by banks exclusively for meeting the liquidity requirements of MFs by number 1. Extending loans, and number 2. Undertaking outright purchase of or repos against the collateral of investment grade corporate bonds, commercial papers, that is CPs, debentures, and certificates of deposit, that is CDs, held by MFs, that is mutual funds. Hence statement 2 is not correct. Support extended to MFs under the SLF-MF shall be exempted from banks' capital market exposure limits. So the correct answer is A, that is 1 only. Question number 98. In the context of scientific developments in ancient India, which of the following statements is or are correct? Number 1. Indians learned the decimal system from the Arabs. Number 2. The rotation of the earth was known to Aryabhatta. Number 3. Charaka was the first Indian to have written an elaborate treatise on surgery. Select the correct answer using the code given below. The correct answer is B. So the correct answer is B, that is 2 only. So only statement 2 is correct. It is widely believed that the Indians were the first to use the decimal system. Some say it was introduced in China. The famous mathematician Aryabhatta from 476 to 500 AD was acquainted with it. The Arabs, Middle Eastern mathematicians, especially Al-Khwarizmi and Al-Kindi, introduced it in Europe after having learned it from the Indians. There is little doubt in the fact, however, that the Arabs introduced the decimal system in Europe after having brought it from India. Hence statement 1 is not correct. Aryabhatta was a renowned astronomer and mathematician during the 5th century AD. His famous works were the Aryabhatya and the Arya Siddhanta. The mathematical part of the Aryabhatya covers arithmetic, algebra, plane and spherical trigonometry. On the other hand, the Arya Siddhanta was a famous work on astronomical computation. Aryabhatta worked on the approximation for pi and concluded that pi is an irrational number. In the second part of Aryabhatya, he mentioned the ratio of circumference to diameter is 3.1416. He formulated the rule for finding the area of a triangle, which led to the origin of trigonometry. He calculated the positions of planets according to the Babylonian method and discovered the cause of lunar and solar eclipses. He also pointed out that the sun is stationary and the earth rotates. Hence statement 2 is correct. In ancient India there were two famous scholars, Ayurveda, Sushruta. Okay, so in ancient India there were two famous scholars of Ayurveda. The first one is Sushruta and the second one is Charaka. In the Sushruta Samhita, Sushruta describes the method of surgery of operating cataracts and several other ailments. Charaka's Charaka Samhita, on the other hand, was an encyclopedia of Indian medicine and not a treatise on surgery, like Sushruta Samhita. Hence, statement 3 is not correct. Now let's come to question number 99. Consider the following pairs. On one side we have tribal movement and on the other side we have leader. Number 1, Ramosi uprising. Chittur Singh. Number 2, Ulgulan Revolt, Sidhu and Kanhu. Number 3, Khond Uprising, Chakra Bisoi. Which of the pairs given above is or are correctly matched? So the correct answer is A. That is 1 and 3 only. So the pairs 1 and 3 are correct. The Ramosis, the hill tribes of the Western Ghats in the Satara district of modern-day Maharashtra, had not reconciled to the British rule and the British pattern of administration. They rose under Chittur Singh in 1822 and plundered the country around Satara. Again, there were eruptions in 1825 to 26 and the disturbances continued till 1829. Hence, pair 1 is correctly matched. The Santhal Rebellion 1855 to 56 AD occurred in the Rajmahal Hills of the Santhal region under the leadership of Sidhu and Kanhu. It began as a reaction against the outsiders, particularly landlords, police and moneylenders, while the Munda Rebellion or Ulgulan took place in the Chota Nagpur region in 1899 to 1900 near Ranchi under the leadership of Birsa Munda. This revolt is also known as the Ulgulan Revolt, which means great commotion. Hence, pair 2 is not correctly matched. Khond, or the Kandha Rebellion. The political unrest in Ghumusor, undue interference by the British officials in the succession affairs of the state of Ghumusor, humiliation meted out to their rajas, unsuitability of the British laws and regulations, economic suffering of the Khonds, and intervention in their socio-religious beliefs by the British combined to bring out their rebellions by the Khonds against the British. Of course, one was led by the famous Dora Bisoi and the other by the veteran leader Chakra Bisoi. Chakra Bisoi took the commanding charge of the Khond rebellion in 1840 after the death of his uncle Dora Bisoi. Hence, pair 3 is correctly matched. So the correct answer is A, that is 1 and 3. They are correctly matched. Question number 100. Which of the following rivers does not originate from Aravalli mountain? Number A, Banas. Number B, Luni. Number C, Betwa. Number D, Sabarmati. The correct answer is C. So the correct answer is C, that is Betwa. Aravalli Mountains gave rise to numerous peninsular rivers like Banas, Luni, Sakhi, and Sabarmati. The Banas is a tributary of the Chambal. It originates in the Veron Kamat, situated in Khamnor hills of the Aravalli range. It joins the Chambal on Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh border near Savai Madhopur. Luni, also known as Lonari, Lavanavari, Lavanavati Salt River, is a river in Rajasthan. It originates in the Pushkar Valley of the Aravalli range near Ajmer, passes through the southeastern portion of the Thar Desert, and ends in the marshy lands of Rann of Kutch in Gujarat after traveling a distance of 495 km. Its major tributaries are the Sukri, Mithri River, Bandi, Khari, Jawai, Guhia, and Sagi from the left, and the Jojari from the right. So the major tributaries are Sukri, Mithri River, Bandi, Khari, Jawai, Guhia, and Sagi from the left, and the Jojari from the right. The Sabarmati River is one of the major west-flowing rivers in India. It originates in the Aravalli range of the Udaipur district of Rajasthan and meets the Gulf of Khambat of Arabian Sea after traveling 371 kilometers. So it originates in the Aravalli range of the Udaipur district of Rajasthan and meets the Gulf of Khambat of Aravalli of Arabian Sea. Okay. Gulf of Khambat of Arabian Sea after traveling 371 kilometers in a southwesterly direction across Rajasthan and Gujarat. 48 kilometers of the river length is in Rajasthan while 323 kilometers is in Gujarat. The Betwa or Betravati is a river in northern India and a tributary of the Yamuna. It rises in the Vindhya range, just north of Hosangabad or in Madhya Pradesh, and flows northeast through Madhya Pradesh and Orcha to Uttar Pradesh. Hence option C is the correct answer. Nearly half of its course, which is not navigable, runs over the Malwa Plateau. The confluence of the Betwa and the Yamuna rivers is Hamirpur town in Uttar Pradesh, in the vicinity of Orcha. So for the 100th question, the correct answer is C, that is Betwa. So that's all guys. See you in my next video. Bye.